Hello friends, welcome to the Integration Hub. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the Anypoint Studio, how Anypoint Studio looks like and how can it be used to develop Mule ESB flows. Okay, so let's get started. So this is the location where have I installed my Anypoint Studio. So here I can see the icon for Anypoint Studio application. I'll just double click on it. So now once you click on it, it will ask you a workspace. So you can select anything on your file system. So whatever you select, that location will be having all the artifacts related to your projects which you are going to develop inside that workspace. So you can directly go to that particular file system and see all the artifacts. I'll show you after developing some flows how it looks like. I have given the path. I'll just do a launch. So now this has opened. So if you open the Mulesoft any workspace for the first time, it will look like this. So you can see there are multiple sections, different sections which I'll explain. So let's start with the package explorer. So once we develop any project or any flow in the Mule, those things would be visible in this section. Okay, I'll show you after developing one how it looks like. This section is the design section where we can develop our Mule flows by adding different connectors. Having said about connectors, those connectors will be available here in the Mule palette. So we can select the connectors as per our need, as per our development requirement, and we can just drag and drop those connectors to this design view, and we can connect them accordingly to develop the Mule flows. Also, this Mule properties will be showing you the property of any connector. If we click on the connector, we can see any properties related to that connector here in this section. Inside the problem, it will show you anything if any problem is there in your workspace. So let's just create a sample Mule project. I'll click on create a Mule project. My first Mule project. I'll just finish it. So now since I have created a project, so here if you see the package explorer, now it is showing us the one project which we have created. Okay. So once we create the project, it generates an XML file. So XML file is the main component of the email project which will be having all the information related to that particular flow which we are going to develop. There are two views of these things. One is the message flow where we will be designing the flows by connecting different connectors. Other is the configuration XML. So whatever we have developed here, this is the underlying XML for that. Okay. So as of now it looks like this. Once we keep on adding different connectors inside that message flow, this XML file will also get changed accordingly. We'll see this. Okay. So now here to design anything is asking to get start, drag an operation or scope from the Mule palette. So I'll so before that I'll just explain about this file structures. What is the use of these things? What are different file structures? So here if you see src main Mule, so this will be having the main XML file which will be basically our Mule flows. Then we are having src main Java. We can place any Java jar files and all if we need to those things to be included in our projects. Okay. Now in the main resources, these two files are by default generated. Let's say if you want to add an text file to be used inside our Mule flow, so those things we can place here. So any additional resource which we are going to use in our project development or the Mule flow development, we can place those things here. Similarly, we are having test Java munit. So here we want to place any jar file which are required for testing, we can place here. Any extra resources if you want to use for the testing purpose, that should be placed here. Also, munit is basically a testing tool for the Mule flows. Any artifacts related to that should be placed here. If see HTTP and sockets are by default generated, if you expand it, we can see the jars related to this HTTP are available inside that sockets. So why these things are coming by default? Because if you see here this side, I can see core HTTP and sockets modules are already available. So those things are already packaged inside this message flow. Okay, so if you add any extra module of the extra actually come this module, that thing will be added here. I'll show you how. So now let's say if I want to add any file, okay, boom, any other module, we can just expand it. So let's say if I want to use file modules, I'll just drag and drop it to the left side. So now file is available here. Now if you can see, this file also gets automatically included in the our project. So in the palette we can see different connectors. If we click on sockets, we can see the connectors available for the sockets. If we click on HTTP, we can see the HTTP connectors available for development. If you click on core, these many connectors are available which we can use in our message flows. So that's how it works. So any module you want to add, you can directly go to that module and drag and drop to the left side. And if you click on that module, you can see all the connectors available. We can just drag and drop to the design window. There is a search option. If you know the connector name directly, you can just search for that. Let's say if I'm searching for logger, I can directly see it here. So if you know that the connector name directly, you don't have to go to the hierarchy wise. Okay, you can directly search it. So let me quickly start developing a flow. I'll just create HTTP flow. I'll just do a logger. I'll quickly configure this. We'll discuss about HTTP nodes, HTTP connectors in the later videos in detail. So now I have developed our project. So like I explained earlier, now if you go to the configuration XML, this see now this XML has changed. So it's basically the XML representation of the message flow which has been developed here. Okay. Now for the Mule properties, let's say if I click on logger, I can see all the properties related to the that logger component here. Similarly, I can click on the listener node and I can see all the properties related to that HTTP listener. Okay. So in the problems, as of now, there is no problem in my workspace, but there is some issue with my, if there is any issue in my workspace, those things would be logged here and we can go to those particular errors and we can see the description and we can fix accordingly. Now I have created this thing. Let's deploy this flow. For that, just directly right click on that application or the project, run as Mule application. So now in the console window, it will show you step by step the deployment. What are the steps it's executing to deploy those things, we can see step by step. If any error occurs, that will also be logged in the console. If it's successfully deployed, it will show the final status as deployed. Let's wait for that. So now if you can see the status is deployed, so I'll quickly test it. For that I have one REST client, Postman. For testing any HTTP REST request, I have Postman. If you guys are familiar with any other REST client, you can go ahead with that, or you can just use the Postman. I'm just opening the Postman. So here I'll close it. I'll just create a one new request, okay, to call my HTTP. So that is HTTP. Come on. This is my URL. Okay, so I'll call that URL. So now you can see the status is 200. Okay, fine. So that we are able to call that particular flow which we have developed and deployed on this particular IP and the port and to this path. Okay, so now let's go back to the application. So now in the C in the console, since this HTTP listener has received the request, and then after that we have a logger node. In the logger I have mentioned to log my first Mule project. If you go to the console, I can see here clearly it's logged as my first Mule project. So logger would be useful in the projects, let's say for this troubleshooting and problem determination purpose. So we can put logger as separate steps. We can see whether this steps has been completed or not. So basically that logger is used for those, or to log something success or failure scenarios and all those things. So that's how we can develop and deploy one Mule application. Also, I'll show you how to debug that. So for debug that, simply debug as Mule application. Again, it will show you in the console step-by-step process. It is asking me if you want to change the switch. Still in process. Final status it will show as deployed. So now I need to add a breakpoint. So I'll just do a toggle breakpoint here. Now if I send the request, let's see what happens. So I have sent the request. Now request, this HTTP listener has received the request. Now it's at the logger node. So we can see the properties related to logger. This is info. The message which we are trying to log is my first Mule project. In the attributes, we can see all the attributes related to this message flow, including HTTP header, listener, everything we can see inside the attributes, and we will just finish it. So once we switch this perspective, it will go to the Mule debug perspective. Currently, we are in the Mule debug perspective. Once we do any development and all, in that case, we will be in the Mule design perspective. So now if you go to console again, now he's here. If you see, it logs as my first Mule project. So that's all about this video. In this video, now we have learned how to develop a Mule project, how to deploy it, how to test it, how to debug it. So that's it for today's video. See you in the next video. Thank you.